You know, oftentimes when we think of learning and education in our society, we will we think about growth and development, especially for the people, the young minds that we're shaping into the future. Now, recently, a school in Minnesota, Savage, Minnesota, a school, Briar Lake High School. Now, let me tell you what my first observations were. I'm not even talking about the video yet. We'll get there. See, everything has to work in motion, so to speak. We're talking about the building. It's a funny shaped building from the outside. It looks very kind of odd in shape. Really odd. But it's a building. But you notice those kind of things. You always do. You notice the aesthetics of something. So, the building is shaped odd. And then when you look inside the building, it's huge inside. Very, very big and vast. Lots of room. Which, I don't know how many students go to that high school, but I would imagine a good number. And so you need a lot of space to, if there's a lot of bodies, you'll need a lot of space. But something that I noticed about the inside, at least what I saw of the inside, it was shaped odd on the inside just like it was shaped odd on the outside. Now, I'm telling you all of this because there's a reason. An odd shaped building, go and take a look at Briar Lake, the school building. An odd shaped building like that, with no noticeable decorations, no flair outside of it, outside of the actual physical structure, should raise a red flag to you. And I tell you why. Because it shows a lack of progress, growth. It looked like it was stuck in the 1980s or 1990s, the building. There's been no decorations to the outside. Nothing. I would think if I was going to that building every day, if I'm a student, looking at it, before I even get inside, I'm looking on the outside. I would think that I'm stuck in a time warp. Now, Savage Lake, or Savage, Minnesota, I would imagine is a small town or small community. Maybe people from Savage, Minnesota don't go to Minneapolis or St. Paul all that much in Minnesota. But if they do go to Minneapolis or St. Paul, they're going to see nice shaped, modern constructions of architect. And then they're going to go back to their school in Savage, Minnesota, and see that. Just that alone, the contrast between modern and something that looks very old, it can do very weird things to your brain, especially when it's still developing. So that's the aesthetics of the building. You got to work on that. And that's not a youth thing. That's an adult thing. Where's the faculty input in things? Why is there no pride flags or Black Lives Matter flags flying nearby the building? I didn't see anything. There was no art on the outside of the building. What's the mascot of the school? I mean, it bills itself on being a STEM school. So they're really good in terms of the academics. They say they got excellent STEM programs, they got excellent science and engineering, and a plethora of academic courses they offer students. And I believe that. I fundamentally believe that. But I think that's all they really offer at Prior Lake High School. Courses. You see, I took the due diligence to read over all the messages that have been sent out to students, faculty, and the broad community that's been following. We'll get to the incident in a moment. I took the liberty to read out all the communications by the superintendent and the principal of the school. Now, a common theme that I noticed in all the messaging, I'm going to tell you the good stuff, and then I'm going to tell you the stuff that I'm critical of. A common theme that I noticed was that they addressed and named the issue. They said that the video was horrific and it was racist, and they don't tolerate racism in their community. They kept using the phrase they're very welcoming in their community of differences, because it's a broad-based world and they want to be welcoming of differences. I picked up that common theme. Now you can tell that I read this, because I can't pull this shit out of my ass. I would have had to base it on something. So, unlike you, 3-cent Sherlock Holmes detectives who couldn't even solve a Nancy Drew mystery after reading 8 chapters, I actually do my sleuthing. I do my research. So there was that common theme of being welcoming and, well, not tolerating racism and bigotry. And that was in all the messages. And that was really good. It made it crystal clear that this is not an institution that tolerates that type of bullshit. And then, well, another thing that was really good was they released multiple messages each day, following up with students, faculty, the community about, well, what's been transpiring. Now, they can't share all the data privacy information of the student that's being investigated, but they have mentioned that the ongoing investigation is underway. Apparently, it's illegal to tell someone to commit suicide in the state of Minnesota. So there could be criminality charges behind that video that was posted. We'll get to that in a moment. So there's the whole letters and community communications have been really good by the school on the whole. But there was something that I noticed, and this is the critical part, that was lacking in every communication that I read. I had to keep reading over and over again, looking for it. It wasn't there. Now, something that was there that kind of can mask and operate and act as though it is the thing that I'm talking about was they mentioned that they were seeking student voice and student input in, well, moving forward. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but you gotta back up a minute. You want the students to do something that the faculty is not modeling themselves. That's problematic. There was all of this communication about the students and sharing the student leadership, what they want to do with the school. But there was nothing talking or addressing what the faculty is educating themselves on. It's almost like there's no work being done around being anti-racism in that school on the faculty or the students' part. I didn't get the sense that there was anything ongoing on a consistent basis with discussions around being anti-racist in that school. I just don't get that sense. And then, my spider sense was tingling. So I had to go and do some more sleuthing. And wouldn't you know, I found what I was looking for. This school had a school nurse that worked at the school for a number of years, recently quit, resigned out of frustration. But she didn't do this just like write an email to the school and just resign. No, she went to one of the school board meetings and publicly did it at the school board meeting. And now I'm going to present her argument, and then I'm going to present the counter argument to her argument, because you need to hear their argument, and then you need to hear our argument. Her argument went as such and as follows. I think it's very dangerous and against my belief to have children wear masks in schools for 7 hours in the day. Remember, we're talking about this school nurse who went to a public school board meeting at Prior Lake High School, who worked there for a number of years as a nurse. And she was talking about what happened last year and this year. So she doesn't believe in the children, the high school students, wearing masks in the school. She said the parents should decide about that, not the school and not the district. Okay, so no masks. Then she had a problem and said that, well, the students shouldn't quarantine if they come into contact with a person who's tested positive for COVID. They shouldn't have to quarantine back at home. So I guess if you come into contact with someone who's positive with COVID-19, you can just go outside and just mingle and meander without a mask. We've already established she doesn't believe in masks, so you should just be able to meander with the general public even if you come into contact with COVID. And you know this. This is not saying that you don't know that you come into contact with COVID. This is saying somebody is tested positive and you know this, and you shouldn't have to quarantine. This is what this school nurse was saying in public. You can go and find the video. I'm not lying to you. So she doesn't believe in quarantine if you come into contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID. Then she was against testing if you have come into contact with someone with COVID. She was against all testing. You shouldn't test students. Now keep in mind, these are high school age students. You shouldn't test high school age students. So you can't wear a mask. She doesn't want you to quarantine, and you shouldn't test students. She ranted for about 25 minutes, but she didn't offer a single, here's my critique of this bullshit, she didn't offer a single alternative mitigation strategy in her rant. She just told you what she doesn't want to happen based off of her, she said, religious beliefs. Now you fuckers are going to have to tell us eventually the passage in either the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, or any other book that you glorify. You're going to have to tell us where they mention that you cannot wear masks. You cannot wear quarantine if you have a deadly virus. You're going to have to point that shit out. Religious beliefs, my ass. This is not about beliefs. This is about you not wanting to do what everybody else, responsible people, know we have to do. Religious beliefs. Point it out. I'm waiting because it's been 20 months and none of you, not one of you fuckers, have been able to point out in any scripture where it states these beliefs that you have. We're waiting for it. But this is a school nurse and she quit. Good riddance. She doesn't care about the health of the students and she accused the school board of not caring. But you didn't offer any mitigation strategies. You just said what you were against. Okay, that's another thing that they do. I guarantee you she's probably against vaccines too. So she doesn't want the students to be vaccinated either. I mean, she didn't say that, but if you don't want them to wear masks, you don't want them to quarantine if they come into contact with someone who's tested positive, and then you don't want them to test, what mitigation strategies does she want? Nothing. They want to pretend like the virus does not exist, when we all know that it does. And then, on top of that, they say they want to have rights as parents. But your rights are infringing on other people's rights, you know. You can't say, well, I want my children to be able to go into the public without a mask. And someone who, well, has a compromised immune system, if they contract it, don't hold my child or myself liable in court for, well, potentially murdering that person. No, don't hold us liable for that. That won't stand up in a court of law. It won't. Because you are liable under the American Disabilities Act. Someone who has a compromised immune system is legally defined as being disabled. If you transmit a deadly virus to someone who is legally defined under the statute of the law as being disabled, you are committing a homicide if you knowingly do it and they die. I would prosecute your ass to the moon on that case. But these are the people that don't give a fuck about anybody else. Remember, their hero wore a green jacket that said, I don't care. I don't really care. Do you? You remember that bullshit? You know, going back to Prior Lake now. Prior Lake, this is not the first time you've had, well, a racist incident. Now is it? See, they're billing this as like, oh, this is the first time and we're really taking care of it and we're really trying to like solve this and we're really focusing on equity and we're really focusing on inclusion and we're really focusing on diversity and we're really focusing on ending racism. Spare me. I told you before, this is the big league. You cannot fuck with this. I know that shit. It's all, this is the best PR words we can find to type. We don't even know what the fuck the shit means ourselves. But we're just going to type it in here because we know that these are buzzwords. That's the type of school Prior Lake High School is. I know. Believe you me, I know. I know Minnesota. I've traveled all over this country. I know this country. I know. It's a shame. I haven't even gotten to the video yet. Because like I said, you need the background information before we get to that. I saw the interesting promotional videos for Prior Lake. And the students talking about things that they value. And it's nice pictures. And it's a band with drums. and they're banging the drums and beating the, all those things. And you get a sense of pride and passion for the school. You really do. It's a well done video. But you know what the video didn't show? It didn't give what it was trying to give out. Something to that nature. That's what the kids say nowadays. It didn't just give it. It fell kind of flat. It was like a stale old 1980s political ad. We're Prior Lake High School, and our values are the Lakers' values. We believe in inclusion and welcoming people. Well, clearly you don't believe in welcoming people. I mean, you have a student who's using the N-word. And that wasn't the first student that did that. Now, was it Prior Lake? This has been happening for years at that high school. I kid you not, for years, probably decades. Students casually walk across the halls in the school and use the N-word. And faculty are well aware of these things, and they do nothing. No one is ever disciplined for being overtly racist. No, this time Prior Lake got caught because the video went throughout the whole entire internet. Within Tuesday of last week, everybody in Minnesota, whether they even go to that school district or not, had seen that video. The internet is lasts forever, baby. Prior Lake, you lied to all of America. You lied to America. Now, I told you, the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is going on. And everybody that testified, for the most part, lied. So the verdict is going to be hard for the jury to reach. I see why they had to convene for today. They had to think, which liar do I want to think is more credible? The liar that murdered people and pretended, he was there to offer medical assistance when he ended up murdering people, which is his intent of why he went down there in the first place? Or do I want to believe the lies of people who, said they weren't looting, but we know they were looting? So you got to determine whether you think property is more important than human life. Where have I heard that argument before? Oh, Karl Marx, the Communist Manifesto, right? You can tell when something's dying. All arguments that get made against it start to, make a resurgence again. Prior Lake, you're not doing the work. You're pretending. You're bullshitting. And you're bullshitting America. And it's 2021, man. Look here. Let me level with you. We got the internet. It's like everything exists on there. You can find anything you want. And that's just the open source shit. The closed stuff is, it's mind-blowing. Prior Lake, you can't bullshit to us. That's what I'm trying to get across to you. The faculty at Prior Lake High School are probably worse than the students. Because if the students can go around in the halls and use the N-word and know that they won't face any repercussions for that usage and that language, you know the faculty are worse. Because they created an unsafe environment. They've allowed things like that to occur with no retribution or consequences. You're telling me them making a student have to apologize and write a reflection as to what they did is so detrimental in harming Prior Lake? How come all of these incidents that's been reported for decades, for years, No student has ever been held accountable or responsible for their actions. You've had students physically assaulted in that school because of their race and the color of their skin. And this is within the last 5 years at Prior Lake High School. And the faculty are well aware of these incidents. If I know about them, the faculty knows about them. The administrators know about them. The principal knows about them. The superintendent knows about them. The school district knows about them. The school board knows about them. Everybody in Savage, Minnesota knows about Prior Lake High School. And you know what the consensus is, what they say about Prior Lake High School? They say it's a good white school with good white racist students. They're very smart, but, well, they're racist. That's what they say about Prior Lake High School. You can't bullshit this. America, you can't bullshit anymore. I don't know if you got the memo, but you can't bullshit. We lived through 2020. And they say hindsight is 2020. So stop bullshitting. The biggest problem at Prior Lake High School is white supremacy. Is there any anti-racist organizations operating in Prior Lake High School? Because there needs to be. There needs to be anti-racist galore organizations in that school. I've seen stuff happen and heard about things happening in schools. And I've looked over what the organizations are in the school. I didn't even fucking bother to look over what the organizations are in Prior Lake High School. They don't have shit. They don't want shit in that school. That's the type of school that says on paper they're doing everything right. And then when you walk in the door, you smell something that stinks to high heaven. That's Prior Lake High School. The students will give me 2 thumbs up because they know I'm spot on this shit. I've never stepped a foot in that school, but I can smell bullshit from a mile away. Prior Lake High School. Can you tell me why a student who attends your educational institution and you have such glowing strategic plans and such harrowing, visionary articulations of a welcoming community and what it looks like. And we're going to talk about a welcoming community. We get to define that shit, not Prior Lake High School. Who fuckers don't get to define that? You kept mentioning welcoming, welcoming, welcoming. It's not fucking welcoming to make a video telling someone to commit suicide. Nobody likes you because you're dark skinned. That is fucking not welcoming, Prior Lake. But that's the mess you've created. Sure, the students are responsible, but the adults are more responsible because they create the environment. I keep telling you time and time again, if you don't teach tolerance, you will get intolerance. You have to teach tolerance, or you get intolerance. You get people thinking, well, it's okay to tell somebody to kill themselves and go into graphic details about how they want you to kill yourself. It's okay to, well, repeatedly call someone the N-word and tell them nobody likes you because of your skin color. This is not some little 7-year-old. This is somebody in high school. Shortly, in a couple of years, to be in college and university. Prior Lake High School You are the problem in the United States of America. Schools like you are the problem. You put a mask on over your racism, your bigotry, your hatred. You use nice terminology. But at the core, you don't believe any of that shit. You haven't done the work. You're like a person who, well, hasn't done the job, knows they haven't done the job, but tells, well, their supervisor, it's all done. And they ask, well, how did it go? Just great. That's Prior Lake High School in a nutshell. And well, there was an interesting twist, wouldn't you know? See, I told you, I do all the work. I don't cut corners on shit. Apparently, the girl who made the video, I'll refer to her by her first name, Jalen. Apparently, her family is Santee Sioux, First Nation people. Now, you know, this is how you get your, well, this is how you can tell that you get your chops and you can get your owl wings when you know this shit. The Santee Sioux tribe, ladies and gentlemen, used to be in northern Minnesota. They used to be in northern Minnesota way back when. But, well, there was another tribe that they had some issues with, you know, tribal kind of things. The other tribe, the Chippewa tribe, defeated the Santee Sioux tribe, and they pushed them down to southern Minnesota. Now that's when they ran into the white settlers, and that didn't go well for the Santee Sioux tribe. The rest is about history, because they ended up selling their land, 35 million acres of land, for the grand total of 8 cents per acre to the United States government. And then they got pushed down. Well, they fought about that, but they ended up losing. Now Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, you've heard a lot of harrowing stories about Abraham Lincoln. This is when Lincoln was president. So you got to remember Lincoln here. Now Lincoln, this is right after the Civil War in 1862. Lincoln is pressed because these Santee Sioux tribe members, they killed a lot of Union soldiers. This is right after the Civil War. You've already had a bloody war about black and white people. And now you got the Santee Sioux killing Union troops. And there were hundreds of Santee Sioux people who were scheduled to be executed by the United States government for, well, war crimes. Now Lincoln, at the last moment, decides that he's going to pardon pretty much everybody that was involved with the massacre, the Union troops. So pretty much all the Santee Sioux members were pardoned. Only 33 were executed. Leave it to Lincoln. Good old Honest Abe. But why do I tell you that about the Santee Sioux? I told you I wrap things up with a bow. Watch and see this. Watch this magic trick. So, the United States government has problems with tribes around this time. Native American tribes. And they don't really know who's Indian, Native American, Indigenous, First Nation people. So the United States government comes up with the Dawes Roll. Now the Dawes Roll is basically commission where people go out to reservations and set up tables. And people walk up to the table and say, I'm Indian. I'm Native American. It happened way back in the 1860s, 1870s. And the Dolls Row, a lot of people would walk up who weren't Indian at all. And they would pay $5 to be added to the Dolls Row. That's where the term $5 Indian comes from. They weren't really Indian. They just paid under the table to, well, be listed as Indian so they could get allotment of land. A lot of people did that back then. You have to remember, there was a lot of things going on. People were starving to death. It was famine right after the war. Civil wars are not pretty. The country was in a bad shape. So people wanted land so they could farm and till, so they could feed their families, you know. So everybody was coming there. So Jalen, fast forward now to the video. Her family says that she's Santee Sioux Indian. But I looked up where the Santee Sioux Indians live now in 2021 along the northern Missouri River. And they're in like a village. It's less than 10,000 square feet, the village. I'm sorry, less than 10,000 acres, the village. And pretty much everybody's a cattle rancher and a farmer. Now, Prior Lake High School is in Savage, Minnesota. The Santee Sioux are in Missouri along the river in a village. Something's not adding up here. If you say you're Santee Sioux, why aren't you living with the Santee Sioux? Oh, wait a minute, you're in the suburb. In a nice, big, nice mansion with nice amenities like Apple iPhones and high-speed internet. And you probably have, well, walk-in dryer and washer. You probably have multiple big flat-screen TVs. They don't have any of that shit in the Santee Sioux village. We can go. We can take a journey down there. I'll show you what they have. Jalen is a $5 Indian. Yeah, sure, she can go back to the Dolls Row. See here, like my name, the Crooks. We've always been Santee Sioux. Yeah, 90% of the people that claim to be Indian in America aren't Indian. They're white people. They're $5 Indians. This is fully established fact by the Census Bureau. This is not the Purple People's Owl saying this. You get benefits. It happened. We don't want to talk about it as a nation, though. I don't know. Maybe that's critical race theory. Somebody's going to have to ask Charlie Kirk. You can tell him the Purple People's Owl told you about the Dolls Row and the $5 Indians. And you ask Charlie Kirk if that quantifies or qualifies as being critical race theory. You know, people don't like the truth. It's okay. They say the best disinfectant is sunshine. It might not always be sunny in Philadelphia, but I'm always cheery. I guarantee it. You know, we gotta stop bullshitting. That's why kids can be so mean to other children, because they see adults being mean to other people. And if you're a mean person and you live in a mean environment where people constantly lie to you, never tell you the truth, And well, I always tell you that the reason you don't have the truth is because, well, other people are bad people. And it's those other people that are really the problem. It's not me. It's not us. It's those other people. Those imaginary people, you know. And they live in those places. And they do horrible things to each other. We don't do those things. We're civilized, wouldn't you know? You know, some of their beliefs have it. Legend has it that some red creature, fully red creature with horns and some kind of Poseidon staff comes to you in the middle of the night, wouldn't you know, and tells you, purple people's out. You gotta get up out of bed and you gotta go rob a bank tomorrow morning. Let me know when you see this red creature with horns sticking out of its head. We've all been dying to meet him. Or her. We don't know. Or maybe they. Or them. Or Z. We don't know. It's just a red creature with horns. We're all dying to meet it. Bunch of bullshit. It's a lack of accountability. A lack of responsibility. And that's Prior Lake High School in a nutshell. Now, will they try to get better is the question. Because you got to look forward. You can't look backward. Will they do anything to try to get better? That's really the story of America. Will America finally do anything to get better? You know, side note here. I gotta take a swipe at, well, close to home. You know, they say there's no place like home. But I gotta take a swipe at the home. When it was time to do equity, Seattle was up at the plate. And they swung. And they missed the ball. Strike 3. You're out at the old ball game. How the fuck are you going to put in Bruce Harrell and Ann Davison in a supposedly progressive city? You know why? Because they didn't want to do equity. White people. Point blank. I don't give a fuck if you dislike this. Middle-aged white people in homes in this city voted for Ann Davison and Bruce Harrell because they did not want to do equity. Period. I didn't vote for those fuckers. So whatever happens in Seattle is going to be a result of people not wanting to do equity. Prior Lake High School hasn't even had that conversation. So we're further along. But you see, time and time again, when it's time to actually put up or shut up, white people shut up and don't ever put up. And that's quintessentially the problem in America. Ann Davis and Bruce Harrell. Fuck out of here with that bullshit, Seattle. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. So progressive. You know, they say if you can't criticize home, then you have no right to criticize what happens away from the house. And don't air your dirty laundry out in public. Don't give me fucking dirty laundry, and I won't have to air it out in public. Shame on Seattle. I know that everybody didn't vote. It's an off-year election. But we should have stopped that bullshit, and we didn't. And fundamentally, I think it has to do with us not wanting to fully do equity, diversity, and inclusion in this city. You had a lot of money from Amazon and all of these big mega companies and corporations pouring money into a city attorney's race, pouring money into a mayoral race because of the Jump Start program that the city council passed here in Seattle. They would tax corporations to make equity a primary focus of residents who live in Seattle. And middle-aged white people who own homes in this city detest that idea. And I wonder how long they think that you can benefit off of, 400 years of a jump start in terms of owning people and people being property. And then saying, well, I didn't personally own slaves. I know you didn't personally own slaves. I didn't say you did. You fucking did benefit from the shit. Generationally, everybody did. Period. We'll talk more about that at a later time. But people just don't want to follow through when they know they need to. Prior Lake, I hope you follow through. I really hope you start the conversation. Because you haven't even started. You really need to focus in on that. And you need either to, really educate your faculty and your staff and your administrators. Or you need to start with a clean slate. Because I can tell you, every student at Prior Lake High School will back up my account of things and say that, the students are the problem, but the faculty is just as much the problem. Everybody will say that at Prior Lake High School. Whether they support what, Jaden did, or whether they support Naya. They'll all say that. They'll all point the finger at the adults in the room. As well the finger should be. Because it's the adults who haven't done the work. And then they want the students to do the work they haven't done themselves. Shame on Prior Lake High School. Do better.